In this video, I'm going to explain the PE ratio, one of the most commonly used numbers when looking at stocks. The PE ratio, or price to earnings ratio, of a stock is defined as the share price divided by the earnings per share. So the PE ratio tells us how much the market is willing to pay for $1 of earnings. In other words, it is a measure of a company's value. The PE ratio is mostly used to compare companies that are in the same kind of business to see which ones are undervalued and which ones are overvalued. For example, if you had two companies that are exactly the same, but one is trading at a PE ratio of 10 and the other is trading at a PE ratio of 20, then you would want to buy the one that has the PE ratio of 10, because compared to the other one, you are paying less for the same earnings. So you would be paying $10 for $1 of earnings, but the other company you would be paying $20 for that same dollar of earnings. Where a company is positioned in its cycle or its maturity affects the value of the PE ratios. If you have a startup company or a newly founded company that is not yet profitable, then its earnings per share is negative, and thus it doesn't really have a PE ratio that you can use to compare to other companies. Growth companies like Tesla that have recently turned profitable can have enormous PE ratios because investors believe that the earnings will grow enough to justify the price in the future. More mature companies have lower PE ratios because they are not expected to grow rapidly in the future and have more predictable earnings. PE ratios of some companies might be skewed somewhat currently if that company has taken a big hit to earnings during the pandemic. Then, because of the lower earnings, the PE ratio gets higher compared to its historical ratio. Now you know how the PE ratio works. Comment below if you thought this video was helpful and let me know what you want to learn next. Subscribe to learn more about finance and how the stock market works.